There is a journaling method that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and it has allowed me to journal every day with ease. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. The science shows the benefits of journaling or keeping a diary. It allows you to reduce your stress and to improve your mood and to understand your emotions in a better way. This is a process of emotional regulation. It allows you to develop a deeper awareness of yourself and how you process your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and the environment around you. But a lot of people actually struggle to do this consistently despite understanding the benefits of journaling. I have been one of those people. I have tried to keep a journal and a diary for many years now, and while I did keep a diary to some degree, I always struggled to make this a consistent practice. I would find myself having a goal of just writing a journal entry once a week, but struggling to even do this sometimes. And what I've now found is that the way that I was approaching it is very different to the method that I am going to share today. And I think that has contributed most significantly to how I am able to now keep a journal every single day and to do it with excitement and with ease, and the benefit that it is having on my life personally and professionally. Because through this method, I am actually seeing a real improvement in my mental health and in my professional outcomes as well. So let's dive into what this method is. This is a method that I discovered in Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. This book is designed predominantly to be targeted at creative people, but it applies to everyone because the premise in the book is that we are all creatives in some way. So while you might think to yourself that you don't have a job that you deem as creative, there is always going to be a creative element of your job or of your life that you have the opportunity to nurture that is going to help you in your day-to-day life as well. Cameron says the refusal to be creative is self-will and is counter to our true nature. So Cameron believes that there is a creative energy, no matter what you do, that is available to all of us and that we can tap into that creative source. So you might see this as God, you might see this as the universe, but the method that she shares is going to also help you to tap into your own subconscious. She shares two particular methods as the foundation for her Artist's Way book. And so before I dive into what the journaling method is, I just want to very quickly touch on her other method because this is a really significant method in how she suggests being able to tap into your creativity. And that is to go on artist dates. So it is this idea that you designate a particular amount of time, maybe it is a couple of hours in your week, to spend time alone and really be able to reconnect with your creative energy. You might decide to take yourself out to lunch, you might decide to practice a hobby, you could go to an art gallery. This can look completely different for every person and it can look different every week. So this is another way to tap into your creative energy. Let's get into the journaling element of her toolkit, which you may have heard of because it has been popular for many years now, and that is called morning pages. The method that Cameron shares in The Artist's Way is to handwrite 3 pages of your thoughts every morning. And this is designed to be a free-flowing exercise for your consciousness. So it is not about writing perfectly. It's not even actually about the writing itself. It's actually about putting things on paper to tap into whatever thoughts you are experiencing. And these might be on certain days positive, they could be negative, they could be a mix of both of these things on the same day. On some days it might be really exciting, it might be super bland. On other days there aren't any rules as to what goes into your morning pages and how this looks for you on any given day. But what she does suggest is that you try and use your morning pages to consider the opportunity to overcome what she calls the censor. So, the censor is this character that she has created, and I believe she describes it as picturing a slithering snake who is hissing negative thoughts to you. So sometimes we can suppress elements of what we would really like to do or say or create because we are worried about maybe what people will think or the environment around us. And so often the censor that we have in our mind can correct those things, and it tells us to stay on that safer path. So the censor is essentially thinking that it can keep us safe from what those potential judgments or those potential circumstances of acting outside of the norm could potentially have on your life. But when we engage in morning pages, it allows you to have that opportunity to overcome that censor. This was one of the key things that I found was quite different when I engaged in morning pages as opposed to keeping a diary the way that I used to. Now, I kept my diary, of course, knowing that no one was ever going to see my diary. But to a degree, I felt like I had to put things down on paper in a really cohesive way. What I would actually used to do would be to come up with a theme of what my diary entry for that particular day would be, which is probably what added to why it was more difficult to engage in that, because I had to come up with that idea of what I wanted to actually talk about that day, and then I had to stick to that point as I was writing my diary. Maybe there would be other things in there here and there, but to a degree it had almost too much cohesion to it. Whereas with morning pages, the idea is that you are literally just putting down your thoughts as they come to you. So you might be writing things like, I think this is a pointless exercise, or I'm finding this really valuable, but you're not actually censoring your thought. You're just putting down those thoughts as they come to you. So that is why I found this process to be particularly valuable in terms of not just my mental health, but then also the impact that I'm already seeing it have, just even in a few months, on my personal life and my professional life. And that is because the method of morning pages is also designed to get you to have breakthroughs. So because it's designed for you to overcome censors, it is designed to help you see things in a different way that you may not have seen it previously. The censor, which keeps you in your comfort zone and keeps you safe, is keeping you from that potential that you might have. And that potential that you have is what Cameron describes as the other side. So you're trying to get to that other side of your comfort zone through your morning pages. So as I mentioned, Cameron describes writing your morning pages as 3 handwritten pages. And as a side note to that as well, she also suggests to not actually look back at your morning pages until months later. So you don't have to write it and then read it straight away. You don't have to reflect on your week. You don't have to reflect on your month. That is something that you can choose to do later in that process. And handwriting actually has benefits outside of even just what you put on the page. The process of handwriting is said to improve your learning, your memory, and your ability to work through complex tasks. It also has a calming effect because of the pace that is required for handwriting. And that same pace can also help you to boost your creativity because it means that you have to have a more heightened level of contemplation about what it is that you are actually writing. However, having said all of that, the handwriting element of morning pages is not something that I actually do. That is what I used to do when I kept a diary. And I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the experience of going outside, for example, and sitting with my diary and the physical experience of sitting there with actual pen to paper. But what I found was that when I developed any sort of consistency when it came to keeping a journal, I would fall off that consistency when I would run out of pages in my diary and I hadn't yet bought a new diary. And I know that that is an easy problem to solve, but it would just mean that that break in consistency would mean that I fell off of the habit that I was trying to establish. So what I am doing instead now, though, I find so much easier. And it also means that I don't have all of the physical diaries to keep with me. So I've already had a few diaries and I've never quite known what to do with them, where to keep them. If, I wasn't around anymore, what would happen to them? What I have found now is that doing this digitally has worked so much better for me. And I really think that this is what is contributing so much to the consistency that I've been able to attached to this particular habit. I also find handwriting that number of pages to be quite difficult. So what I am doing now is to have my morning pages be on my laptop. So what I have is just a very simple file created on the Pages program on my MacBook, and it's nothing fancy. There's no template of any kind, but all I do is I keep that one document and I just keep adding a new entry to that every time. So I just start a new page for every morning and I just write as soon as I get on my laptop. And this is something that has become part of my morning routine. I do this quite early in my morning routine because the idea is to try and tap into that stream of consciousness as soon as you can. So it is about one of the second or third things that I do as soon as I wake up in the morning, is that I open my laptop now and I do that. But I will say one caveat to that is that it's probably not great for your eyes to be looking at a screen that early in the morning. So if there's anything that you can do for, blue light filters or anything like that, it's worth keeping that in mind as well. So while I understand the benefits of handwriting, one of the things that I really love about typing is that it allows me to match the speed of my thoughts in a much quicker way, because I think I can type faster than I can handwrite, and so I'm able to capture those thoughts as soon as they come to me instead of being caught up in writing the last sentence and missing what that potential thought could have been. So this is a method that has really worked for me when it comes to morning pages. But there's also another thing that I try and do that is a bit of a twist on what Cameron suggests in The Artist's Way, and that is to have a positive reframe. So Cameron describes using morning pages as an opportunity to share anything that comes to you, whether it is positive or negative, whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood, to capture that all down on paper. Now, with the censor in mind, I definitely still try to capture any negative thoughts that I have on my morning pages document, but what I try and do is, if possible, work through what that actual potential negative thought or problem is. So I don't just leave myself in those negative thoughts. This again is a really big difference to how I was approaching my diary previously. Previously, I found that my diary became a place where it was a lot of the time quite negative and a chance for me to almost vent about problems that I was experiencing, but I wasn't as focused on the solution to those problems. I was more just getting all of my feelings down on the page. What I now try and do is take that problem or take that potentially negative experience or feeling and work through it on my morning pages. So be able to eventually get to a positive solution or something that I can potentially do or tell myself that is going to turn that negative into a positive. And this idea of the positive reframe reminds me of a concept called the Tetris effect, which you may have heard of. And it was based on research that showed that people that spent a significant amount of time focusing on something, like the game of Tetris, for example, would start to see that thing everywhere. So they could see it visually when they were doing different things that weren't actually related to playing that game. Or when they were having a physical experience somewhere else, say you're in a shopping aisle in the grocery store, you start to be able to associate the things that you are seeing physically to the game. You start to see that thing everywhere. So when it comes to having a more positive frame of mind or developing a muscle for gratitude, then you start to see that thing where you may not have seen it otherwise. And if you are more positive, then you'll start to see that thing everywhere. You'll see what the positive element is where you potentially wouldn't. We have a natural tendency towards negativity. We are hardwired for it, for our survival. But it means that we just have to work a little bit harder when it comes to finding the positive in a situation. And I've really noticed such a significant difference when it comes to how I see positive things when I have started to use morning pages and really have this method of the positive reframe. I used to also, as a addition to the diaries that I kept, also keep a gratitude journal, but for the same reasons about it being a physical thing that I would have to keep and I would have to then purchase more of, I've moved into using my morning pages as my gratitude journal as well. So it becomes just this all-encompassing one place to do all of those things that we're often told to do when it comes to putting our thoughts onto paper and the emotional regulation that can help our personal and professional life as well. And with that idea of this all-encompassing morning pages in mind, there is one more thing that I make sure that I add to my daily morning pages, and that is to act like I already have it. So if you have followed my content, you know that I've spoken a lot about the power of visualization and visualizing that goal that you want to achieve, whether it is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or well into the future, and then reverse engineering from there. I've also talked a lot about applying that even just to your day, and that visualizing your day will help you to achieve successful outcomes for your day. Picturing that that meeting is going to go the way that you want it to, picturing that the emails you receive will be the ones that you want to receive. And what I have found is that morning pages gives me a place to visualize my day. So I can put into my morning pages the way that I see my day going in the best possible light. And the other thing that we often hear in the personal and professional development space is the importance of affirmations and the impact that this can have. And this is speaking like you already have that thing, acting like it is in the present tense. And this is something that also flows into the way that it is often recommended that you write goals, to act like you already have it, to speak it into the present tense instead of it being something that happens in the future. But what I found is that through my morning pages, I am able to do that. I'm able to, instead of having to add affirmations to my routine in some other element of my day, finding a way to say that out loud, finding, playlists to listen to, this is a way that I can now do that in that process as well. So this is really all about the energy that you are bringing to your day and your life. It is about attracting the energy that you want to create. It's about understanding that energy flows where your attention goes. So if you are trying to add journaling to your morning routine, then try morning pages, whether it is the traditional method or my button twist. If you want to learn more about the habits that might be keeping you stuck, then check out my previous episode on this topic. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.